Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. Once again, this episode is brought to you by AdamandEve.com. If you go to AdamandEve.com and type in the promo code football, you'll get 50% off just about any item on the store. And I'm your host, Jesse Tapia, and today's show is just basically going to be all about Week 9. We're going to actually recap Thursday night's game between Buffalo and the New York Jets. Then after that, we're going to talk, I'm going to go over the games, give my predictions for each game. And then we'll talk about who's going to have a good game, or personally who I think is going to have a good game, who's not going to play well, which teams are trending up, which teams aren't trending, or which teams are trending down. Then we talk a little bit about the storylines, because we all know, I'm sure everyone has heard, is about Deshaun Watson, and Ezekiel Elliott now can play Sunday, so they're going to rule about him again next week, whether he's going to whether he's going to end up serving his suspension. And then we're going to preview a game on Sunday during the little morning and afternoon games that I like, and then we'll preview the Sunday night game between Oakland and Miami, and then to finish that, after that, we'll preview the Monday night game between Detroit and Green Bay. So it's going to be a fun show. Let's get into it. So yesterday, going into Thursday night's game, I was really high on Buffalo, thinking they're a really good team. They're going to beat the Jets. They're going to be 6-2. They'll be tied with New England for the division lead, and then they're going to give New England a run for their money. And yeah, just Buffalo's finally going to end that playoff drought and all that stuff. I was really high on them, and then what did they do to me? They let me down. They got blown out on Thursday night against the Jets. It really wasn't much of a game. One of my favorite phrases is, it's not much of a race, even if you're in second and you keep it close. Because if you're constantly in second, then you never had a chance. And not that this game was close or anything like that. I mean, the Bills lost by 2 scores, but I mean, like I said, score looks a lot better actually than the Bills showed us. I mean, 2 scores, it seems like a lot, but the Bills played a lot worse than that, and most of the touchdowns actually came in garbage time. So yeah, let's just get into the game. So like I said, the Jets beat the Bills 34-21, and that's another thing I want to talk about. The road teams the last couple of weeks for Thursday night have just played poorly, just terrible. Okay, except for the Chiefs. The Chiefs actually played well, and the refs had a little bit to do with Oakland getting that many chances to win the game. I'm not saying that that's why Oakland won, but the more chances you get, the more opportunity you have. So yeah, Kansas City lost 31-30 against Oakland as the road team, and then the week after, the good old Miami Dolphins got blown out by Baltimore in Baltimore, lost 40-0 that one. And then here we are now. Buffalo loses 34-21 to the Jets in New York, and Bills never had a chance in that one, actually. Well, actually, I don't want to say at all. I mean, first half, it was pretty close, and then the second half comes, and then just the New York Jets broke it open. And that's another thing, too, we'll talk about later on in this segment, is the Jets are winning games when they're supposed to be rebuilding, and they're going to end up with a mid-first round pick, and I'm not too sure that the front office is going to be happy about that, but what can you do? Football players are out here trying to win games, and that's what they're doing. So let's just get into the stats. First, I'll do scoring plays, and then we'll do stats, and I'll give my thoughts on what I think of every team going forward. So, yeah, let's get into it. First quarter, Josh McCown ran for a touchdown, 10 yards, which made it 7-0. There was no other scoring in that first quarter. So, yeah, after the first quarter, it was 7-0 Jets. Second quarter comes. Zay Jones catches a 10-yard touchdown from Tyrod Taylor about 8 seconds into the second quarter, which made it 7-7. And then with about 10:26 left in the second quarter, Chandler Catanzaro hit a 45-yard field goal, which made it 10-7. So after the first half, you're thinking, you know what, it's going to be a pretty good game. Bills might be able to pull it out. blah, 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 blah. But nope, second half comes, and Robbie Anderson catches a 25-yard touchdown from Josh McCown, which makes it 17-7. Then you're thinking, okay, Buffalo, you know what? You got to pick it up, get a stop, then score on offense. Don't do either. Next drive for later on in the quarter for the Jets, Matt Forte takes the ball, runs for 10 yards for a touchdown. That makes it 24-7. You're thinking, the Bills are in trouble. They really got to figure it out right now. And then once the fourth quarter comes, with 11:21 left, Matt Forte scores another touchdown, which makes it 31-7. You're like, oh, Buffalo's done. This might be the old Bills, or at least they're just not playing good. And then later on in the quarter, once again, Chandler Catanzaro kicks a 32-yarder, makes it 34-7. And then that's when those garbage time TDs come in. Deontay Thompson catches a 26-yard pass from Tyrod Taylor with 4:10 left. That made it 34-14. And then Tyrod Taylor with 2:29 left had a QB sneak for a touchdown, which made it 34-21. And that was it for the rest of the game. This was just really, really disappointing from Buffalo. Most people around the NFL and reporters from different media sites have been pretty high on Buffalo so far this season. Once again, like I said earlier, that everyone was expecting Buffalo to come out and win this game because they are on paper they are a better team than the Jets, and the Jets don't really have too many solid superstar players or anything like that. But I don't know, the Bills just didn't show up to play on Thursday. Tyrod Taylor finished the game with 285 yards, 2 touchdowns passing. He was sacked 7 times, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a few moments. And he ran for a TD. And so he had a really not a really good game, obviously, because they lost, but he had a pretty good game. This loss wasn't on him at all. He did his job. This game just came down to the offensive line not playing well. Richie Incognito after the game actually said that it was unfair how they have to play on Thursday night. And it's just not fair. Well, yeah, it's not fair to every other team that's played Thursday night, so you can't really use it as an excuse. I know that there's been thoughts on Thursday night games. Fans really don't like them. Players don't like them. But NFL rules all. So if there's games on Thursday night, you just got to deal with it and play. And the offensive line didn't show up, didn't play well at all, and they had their quarterback sacked 7 times. So that's how that went. LaShawn McCoy had a terrible game. Had 12 carries for 25 yards. Anytime he had a little bit of space, it looked like he was going to do something, and boom, Jets linebackers right there hits him. And there's a few times where the offensive line couldn't even hold their blocks for more than a couple of seconds, which resulted in McCoy getting tackled in the backfield a few times. So, yeah, he just had an all-around bad game, but a lot of it can be attributed to the offensive line. Deontay Thompson had 7 receptions for 81 yards and a touchdown. So he had a decent game. But again, that touchdown came in garbage time. Zay Jones had 6 receptions for 53 yards and 1 touchdown. And Bills fans haven't been too happy with Zay Jones this season because he hasn't played all too well, but he had a decent game on Thursday. Josh McCown, everyone's favorite journeyman quarterback. He had 140 yards and a touchdown. And Josh McCown he's just proven us wrong year after year. Ever since he had that good year in Chicago, I feel like that's what's been keeping him in the league for so long. I know that people don't like teams when they sign him don't look to that year or anything like that, but that's really what solidified him as a quarterback in the NFL. And he's not a starting quarterback, like a good one by any means or anything like that, but he's getting the job done this season and he's doing well. So yeah, he finished with 140 yards and a touchdown. Matt Forte had 14 carries for 77 yards, 2 touchdowns, had his best game of the season. And looks like Bilal Powell had one of his better games of the season. He had 9 rushes for 74 yards. I think he had a big 52-yard run. I think it was 52 or 57. It was around there. Yeah, he had a big run. And Bills ended up bringing him down, but they really couldn't do anything else other than that. Robbie Anderson had 4 receptions for 48 yards and 1 touchdown. And Austin Seferian-Jenkins, tight end for the Jets, have him on my fantasy team, had 2 catches for 20 yards. Really didn't do me any favors. I'm playing in a PPR league, so he gave me about 3 points for that one. So what can you do? But yeah, other than that, the Jets played a really good game. Buffalo just didn't show up at all in this game. It was just weird to see. I mean, like I said, most of us have been high on Buffalo this season, thinking how they're going to challenge the Pats, they're going to make the playoffs, and then when these are the games you have to run here. You need to win these divisional games in order to compete for the division, and these are always good. And as far as tiebreakers go for wild card teams, so yeah, this was a game Buffalo needed, but they just came out flat completely. And like I said earlier, I understand that no one really likes Thursday night games or anything like that, but Roger Goodell says it's going to be played on Thursday night, then it's going to be played on Thursday night. So you really can't make any excuses, and you just got to go out there and play your game. So Buffalo didn't. The offense fumbled 3 times. There was one where the tight end Nick O'Leary, he caught it, went down, and I think he thought he was touched, but no Jets player touched him. So he gets up and he's looking like, okay, I'm down. So like he looks like he's ready to move on to the next play, and then he sees like about 3 different Jets players running at him. It was kind of funny to see, yeah. So then he's like, oh, I got to get going. He starts running, and then boom, ball comes out, Jets recover, and it was just that type of game for the Bills right there. If you needed one play to describe their performance, it was that play right there. So yeah, they fumbled the ball 3 times on offense. Nick O'Leary had 1. Jets recovered all 3 of them, and it's just Bills couldn't do nothing. The Jets held the Bills' offense to 307 yards total on offense. Jets had 331 yards total on offense. And it was just, Jets came out and outplayed, and that's another thing too. Jets were supposed to be in a rebuilding year this season, and they're just not doing very well at that either. I know that the front office isn't going to be too happy because I'm sure we all expected the Jets to maybe win in between, win between 1 to 3 games, and they're already at 4-5. And I don't think that this is a team that's going to be losing too many games going forward. I mean, they're not going to be making the playoffs or anything like that. At least I don't think so. I mean, they could prove us wrong. Right now, they're 4-5. I think they're about a game behind Jacksonville for that 6th spot, and a game and a half behind Buffalo for that 5th spot, and then they only have, so they're about a game behind Miami too, so they're just right there in the mix. Baltimore has 1 less loss than them, but they have the same amount of wins, so if the Jets somehow figure out a way to keep this performance going and just keep competing, you never know. But as far as as far as everything else goes, as far as a rebuilding standpoint, the Jets are not doing too good at that. They have 4 wins. I expect them to probably win 3 more wins and finish 7-9, and that's just going to get you probably a pick in the mid-first round, which is going to be probably around 12 to 15 or somewhere around there, and you can't get Sam Darnold at that spot. So, I mean, it's going to – I know that the Jets really – they probably don't want Josh McCown as their quarterback going forward, and it's not probably. I'm like 99% sure that's what they're thinking, and if they're not, then – that's a whole different problem. But yeah, I mean, the Jets are playing way too well to be rebuilding right now. And I'm sure, like I said earlier, the front office can't be too happy about it. And it's just, I don't know, the Jets are just refusing to go down. Like I said earlier, everyone expected them to win 1 to 3 games. But you know what? Jets didn't care. I love how their defense plays. Their offense, they don't have too many big-name guys, and that's the same with their defense. They got the 2 rookies playing safety who have been playing really good, Marcus May and Jamal Adams, I believe it is. But let me talk about the offense first. Like I said earlier, Josh McCown, he's just out there being a game manager, not doing too much and not trying to be a hero. And Matt Forte and Bilal Powell Matt Forte, this was the first time all season that he scored a touchdown. And Bilal Powell hasn't really been a top back that we all thought he'd be, I guess, for fantasy football and all that. But yeah, they're just finding out ways to win games. Robbie Anderson scored a touchdown on Thursday, which made it 3 in a row for him. So when you've got stuff like that going for you, you're always going to be competing. And like I said, they've been competing all season. They were up 14-0 on the Patriots. They lost that one. They were up 14 points against Miami. They lost that one. And then they did well to compete against Atlanta. They only lost that one 25-20. So the Jets are always going to be a team that's going to be in it. And as far as the whole rebuilding process goes, it's not good. But I mean, if you're a Jets fan out there, then you got to be kind of happy seeing that your team is winning and competing, because I know for a fact no one wants to sit through losing like a terrible season. So yeah, that's how the Jets are right now. And as for the Bills, they need to figure it out. They got the Saints next week, and that's going to be a tough one. It's going to be in Buffalo, so they'll have a little bit of an edge there. But Drew Brees is playing lights out. Michael Thomas is one of the better receivers in the league. Ted Ginn is playing really well. Drew Brees is doing well to find him. And New Orleans has that 2-headed running back monster with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Mark Ingram's a player who's just going to run it down the middle and force you to stop him. He's going to hit you hard when you're trying to hit him too. So he's a tough back to bring down. And Alvin Kamara, he's an explosive threat out of the backfield as far as receiving goes. He's a good PPR running back if you have him, and if you don't, and he's somehow a free agent in your league, pick him up, because like I said, he's just an explosive playmaker. So it's going to be tough for the Bills. This is really a game they needed just so they don't be 6-2, and you can afford. I mean, no one wants to lose, but you can afford a loss to a team like New Orleans. But now that they're 5-3 and a loss to New Orleans next week, which is bring them down to 5-4, and then after that, you know that Bills fans aren't going to be too happy, and then the morale around the locker room is just going to be really low. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out for these teams. But yeah, Jets, just to recap, Jets won that one 34-21. It wasn't much of a game. And right now the Jets are 4-5, Bills are 5-3, and Jets got Tampa Bay next, which is going to be a winnable game for them. Tampa Bay hasn't played all that well, and like I was saying right now, Bills got the Saints, and that's going to be a tough game, but we'll see if they can pull it out in Buffalo. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Next segment, I'm going to go over each game this week, give my prediction, and give a little something on them. So stay tuned. This is the GSMC Football Podcast, and we'll be right back. Hey, are you looking to spice things up in the bedroom? Have you been fantasizing about surprising your lover with an adventurous new toy or adult movie? Well, AdamandEve.com has an offer you're not going to be able to resist. If you go to AdamandEve.com, and for a limited time only, you'll get 50% off just about any item. But that's not all they're offering. Oh no. When you select your one item at 50% off, you're also going to receive 3 free adult DVDs, just in case you need that little inspiration. Plus a free extra gift so sensual, I can't even mention it on the podcast. And to top it all off, they're even willing to throw free shipping on your entire order, and we all know how we love free shipping. And trust me, they're not kidding about any of this. So check out AdamandEve.com today for this special offer. When you go there, you'll get 50% off one item when you type in the promo code FOOTBALL upon checkout. When you do that, you'll get 3 free DVDs, a free extra gift, and that free shipping. So just use the offer code FOOTBALL at AdamandEve.com. Again, that's FOOTBALL, football at AdamandEve.com. All right, and welcome back once again. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment, I recapped the Thursday night game between Buffalo and New York. Gave my thoughts on that. Talked about pretty much how the teams did. What about how they're gonna do going forward. And for this segment, I'm gonna go over each NFL game, give a prediction, and give a little tiny thought about each game too. So let's get it started. For starting off, we're going to do Atlanta at Carolina. For this one, Atlanta's favored, and I'm picking Atlanta for this one. Carolina traded away Kelvin Benjamin for a 3rd and 7th round pick to Buffalo. And their offense so far this season hasn't been playing well at all. And when you trade away a guy like Kelvin Benjamin, it's just going to get worse. So I really like Atlanta on this one. I think Matt Ryan should have a pretty good game this week. And Julio Jones, hasn't been doing too good so far this season, but I think he's going to have a pretty good game this week too. So look out for those two guys this week. And next game, Indianapolis, Yeah, Indianapolis is going into Houston. Houston's favored in that one, but Deshaun Watson's going to be out for the rest of the year with his ACL injury, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the show. But yeah, he's going to be out. So I think I'm going to pick Indianapolis in this one. I really like Jacoby Brissett for that team, even with Andrew Luck being out for the rest of the season. I think that he's going to be able to do well and just do well enough to put him in position to win games. So with Deshaun Watson out and Tom Savage coming in to start, I don't like Houston's offense all that much this week. So yeah, I'm going to go Indianapolis this week against Houston. Then Cincinnati is heading into Jacksonville. Jacksonville's favored in that one, as they should be. And I think this one is going to be a blowout. I don't think Cincinnati's going to be able to put up more than 10 points. Jacksonville's defense has been flying off of the wall so far this season. You got A.J. Boye and Jalen Ramsey shutting down both sides playing corner. Barry Church has been doing good playing safety this season. And then the defensive line has just been terrorizing every offensive line they played. Calais Campbell has 10 sacks so far this season. This is one of his best years of his career, I think. And I just think that this defense is going to cause terror for the Bengals offense. I don't think Joe Mixon is going to have a good game this week. He's probably not going to have any more than 45 yards rushing, if that. And as it is, Cincinnati as a team really hasn't played all too well so far this season. So yeah, I feel like it's not going to be a good game for Cincinnati. Andy Dalton, he's going to throw a couple interceptions, I think, and then I think that AJ Green is going to have a quiet game too. I don't think he'll have more than 60 yards this game, but we'll see. Anything could happen, but as of right now, I like Jacksonville on that one big time. Tampa Bay is heading into New Orleans. New Orleans is favored in that one, and I'm going to pick New Orleans for that game also. Tampa Bay secondary has been poor so far this season. And just as a team, we really expected a lot out of Tampa Bay coming this season. I know that they had the hurricane in Florida, so they had to take their bye week in week 1. But I mean, I'm not sure how much of an excuse you can use that is, because Miami had to do that same thing, taking the can't really pronounce today, but yeah, Miami had to take a bye week at week 1, and they're currently 4-3. So I feel like there's a little bit more that has to do with Tampa Bay not playing well than them playing 16 straight games. Jameis Winston, he's been so far this season. He's been okay. He turns the ball over way too much, and that's what holds him back right now. We all know that he has the tools to become a good quarterback, or possibly even a great one. He's got the arm strength, he's got the vision, but sometimes he makes really bad mistakes. There was one, I can't remember exactly who it was against, but it was earlier in the season, and Jameis is going down. The defensive line, one of the players from there is about to sack him, and he just throws the ball up, and it gets picked off. Luckily, there was a penalty on that play, so the interception was overturned and they got the ball back. But he just makes some boneheaded plays sometimes. And as far as New Orleans goes against Tampa Bay, like I said, that Tampa Bay secondary hasn't been playing well at all so far this season. So I think that Michael Thomas is going to have a big game. Drew Brees has been playing really well so far. It's looking like he's going to break a few career records this season. And Ted Ginn Jr., he's a speedy guy, so he always has a chance to break off for a few touchdowns. I think that he's going to have a big game. And then, like I was saying, New Orleans has that two-headed monster at running back, with Kamara being the explosive playmaker out of the backfield. If you need him to catch the ball or even run it, he can do that. And then Mark Ingram's a really big back who's going to bully you throughout the way. So you got to make sure you wrap up on him, but it's going to hurt even when you do try to tackle him. So yeah, I like New Orleans in this one. Next game, the Rams are heading into New York to face off with the Giants, and Janoris Jenkins is suspended for this one. And I think Jared Goff is going to have a big game with Jenkins out. He doesn't really have any big name receivers. I know Sammy Watkins has a name that we all recognize, but ever since he came, during his time with Buffalo, and even now, he produced a little bit more in Buffalo. And this season, he's been okay. He's been productive, but not like how we expect. And injuries, I feel like, are just something that have hurt his career so far. So I think Cooper Kupp, actually, the slot receiver for the Rams, is going to have the bigger game out of everyone on the receiving corps. And I feel like Jared Goff is just going to find him. I expect Cooper Kupp to have maybe around 8 catches. He's not going to get a lot of yards or anything like that. So 8 catches, maybe 70 yards, and probably a touchdown. And then that Rams defense is always ready to play. So Aaron Donald and co, they're gonna terrorize that offense, I feel. So yeah, I like the Rams in that one. And then Denver's heading into Philadelphia. I like Philadelphia in that one big time. Philly's favored in that game, obviously, and Denver is going to be trotting out Brock Osweiler to be their starting quarterback Sunday. And I've never really been high on Brock Osweiler. If you listen to the last couple of sports podcasts that we've done, I've talked about him. Like I said, there was that one year where Peyton Manning's last year, and Peyton Manning, worst year of his career, even though he won the Super Bowl. He was just playing poor. You knew that Manning was done. So they bring in Brock Osweiler mid-season, and he got benched for Peyton Manning again. So he literally played worse than Peyton Manning did that last season. But teams were still interested in him after that. So that's why Houston gave him that big contract. I think it was around 3 years, $45 million, I believe, or around there. And they only gave him one season. Like, he only had one season there until he was traded. Yeah, he only had one season, and Bill O'Brien didn't like him at all. And you could tell that just Brock Osweiler wasn't what everyone else thought he would be. So then he goes to Cleveland, and he has an opportunity to fight for the starting job. But DeShone Kizer takes that from him, so they cut Brock Osweiler, and now he's back in Denver. So, like I said, I've never really been too high on Osweiler as a quarterback. And Trevor Siemian, I think he's better than Osweiler, but Simeon's been playing poor this season too, so you really can't keep trotting him out there. You got to do something different. And if Brock Osweiler doesn't play well, then you're probably going to see a guy like Paxton Lynch come in for them. But I would think that they would have wanted to put Lynch in, but I know he's coming off an injury. And when they made this decision, he only had around 3 or 4 practices under his belt for the season. So it is understandable as to why they're putting Brock Osweiler out there. But yeah, I just don't like Denver at all in this game. I'm going to go Philly big time in this one. And then another game that's going to be interesting is Baltimore. They're going to be heading to Tennessee to face off with the Titans. Tennessee is currently favored in this one, but I'm going to go Baltimore in this one. I think that their defense is going to limit DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry in this game. And I know Mike Mularkey has come out after their bye and said that Mariota's hamstring is 100%, but I'm more of a believe it till I see it type of guy. I've got him on my fantasy team, and he's been kind of disappointing, but I understand he did have the hamstring injury, and it has limited him. So we'll see how he does. If he's out there and the hamstring truly is better, then Tennessee does have a chance. But even if he is at 100%, I still like Baltimore, mainly because Baltimore is that team you can never put away. That defense is always going to keep them in games, and John Harbaugh does well to scheme for the offense to put him in the best position possible to win. So yeah, I'm going to go Baltimore in that one. And then Arizona is heading to San Francisco to face off with the 49ers. Arizona's favored in this one, but I'm going to go with the Niners for my pick in this game. Drew Stan's going to be the quarterback. Carson Palmer is out for the season with a broken arm, so I feel that San Francisco's defense is what's going to win in this game. The offense has been really bad. They're going to be without Pierre Garçon for the rest of the season because he's on IR with a neck injury, I believe it is. And I just feel that the defense is going to do well to limit Adrian Peterson. They're going to stack the box against him, and they're going to force Drew Stan to throw the ball. Ooh, voice cracked right there. But yeah, they're going to force Drew Stan to throw the ball. And I think that the defense might come up with a touchdown, a pick six or two possibly. But yeah, I think that the defense is what's going to keep them in the game and give the offense an opportunity to win it. So yeah, I like San Francisco in this one. They're going to get their first win of the season, I believe. Washington's heading to Seattle to face off with the Seahawks. I like the Seahawks in this one. They're favored in this one also. Washington's a bit of a weird team this season. Like they play like a good team sometimes, and then they play like a bad team the other times. And Seattle's finally starting to hit that stride where once the season is getting going, like now we're past the halfway point, and this is usually where Seattle gets pretty hot. So yeah, I like Seattle in this one. I think that they're going to win by a couple of scores. I expect a big game out of Russell Wilson again after last week. Now that he's got Dwayne Brown out there, he's going to have finally a good not a good offensive line. He's going to have a good player on the offensive line, which is going to give Russell more time. So, yeah, I think Russell Wilson's going to have a big game, and I like Seattle on this one. Kansas City's heading into Dallas, and we're going to talk more about this game later on in the show, but I like Dallas in this one now that Zeke is playing. He won his appeal, so he gets to play this Sunday, but there's going to be a panel consisting of 3 judges next week where they're going to rule if Zeke can play the rest of the season or he's going to serve that 6-game suspension. And Kansas City is one of the better teams in the league right now, but I just feel like they're not going to be able, that defense isn't going to be able to handle the 1-2 punch of Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. I think that they are going to limit Des Bryant because I think Marcus Peters will do a good job on him. And I think that the Kansas City's offense is going to have a big game, but I just don't think that they're going to be able to keep up with Dallas this week. So yeah, I like Dallas in that one. And as for Oakland, they're heading into Miami. They're going to be playing Sunday night. That's another game we're going to talk later on in the show. But I'm going to give a little bit on it. Oakland's going to be missing 3 corners from their secondary, and as it is already, that secondary has been brutal so far this season. They've just been constantly getting burned, and they can't really cover anyone on the offensive side of the ball. And I know that Miami's offense has been the worst in the league so far this season, but I think that Kenyon Drake, and once again, I'm going to get a little bit more in depth later on the show about this game, but I expect Kenyon Drake to have a good game, and maybe Jay Cutler coming back now that he's given a chance to start again. Maybe he can figure out something out. But yeah, I like Miami in that one. And then for the final game, which is on Monday night, it's going to be Detroit against Green Bay, and that's going to be another game we talk about later. I like Detroit in this one. I don't trust Green Bay at all going forward until Brett Hundley shows me that he could be at least a decent quarterback to where he can help the offense move up a little bit better. I think it was the first game he started. He only completed 1 pass in the first quarter, I believe it was. So it's not really something good to see as a Green Bay fan. I'm not saying I'm a Green Bay fan, but Green Bay fans out there, I'm sure they're not too happy about how Brett Hundley played that game. So yeah, I like Detroit on that in that game. As for teams on a bye this week, the teams on a bye are Chicago, Cleveland, the Chargers, Minnesota, New England, and Pittsburgh. So those guys are going to get a lot of rest. Pittsburgh's going to be, it's an interesting team to see how they come out of the bye since Martavius Bryant didn't play last game. We're going to see if Mike Tomlin's going to bring him back in or if he's just going to keep riding Juju Smith-Schuster. And I think that if he does bring back Martavius Bryant, that he shouldn't be the starter coming back. I think Juju Smith-Schuster has done more with the opportunities he's been given. So once Pittsburgh comes back, I think they're playing Indianapolis next week. So I think that Juju Smith-Schuster should get the start in that one. And as for who the rest of the teams play next week, coming off of their bye, Cleveland's going to be heading to Detroit. Like I said, Pittsburgh's going to be playing Indianapolis. The Chargers are going to be heading to Jacksonville. That's going to be a tough one for them just because of that defense that Jacksonville has. Patriots are going to be heading into Denver. Green Bay is going to be facing off, or actually Chicago is going to be facing off with Green Bay in Chicago. It's going to be a fun one to watch because those games are always entertaining since they're such big rivals. And Minnesota is going to be heading to Washington, and they're going to be facing off with the Redskins. So yeah, that's how it's going to. That's who the teams on a bye are going to play next week. And once again, those are my predictions from earlier. And for the next segment, we're going to talk about some storylines, players who I feel are going to do good this week, and we'll talk a little bit more about Deshaun Watson. Josh Gordon's going to be back November 20th or around that time. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Ezekiel Elliott, and like I said right now, we're going to just talk about who I think is going to have a big game this week, who's not, who's trending up, who's trending down, and yeah. So stay tuned. This is the GSMC Football Podcast, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. In the last segment, I gave a prediction and a little analysis about each game, and just pretty much what I thought. Talked about bye week teams, who they're going to be playing next week. And as for this segment, we're going to be talking about the storylines, and I'm going to later on after that in the segment, I'm going to talk about who I think is going to have a good game, who I think is going to have a bad game, which teams are trending up, which teams are trending down, and pretty much just give a lot of analysis in this segment. So let's get it started. First off, I want to talk about Deshaun Watson tearing his ACL in practice. You can actually hear me talking about this on the last sports podcast, but this is the first time I've had the opportunity to talk about it on the football podcast. So, yeah, it's brutal to see a guy like that go down. He's been a really good player so far. Actually, he's been a great player so far this season. He's been playing like a top 10 quarterback, and he's only a rookie. And it's just sad to see a guy like that go down. I believe it was week 1 after the hurricane hit Houston and all that. He donated his game check to a couple of families and helped them out. So like he's just a really good guy in the NFL, and you just don't want to see a player like that go down with an injury, especially an ACL injury. And I'm not just saying specifically for Deshaun Watson. I mean also any other player in the league. You never want to see them go down with injuries because it hurts the game, and we need all these good players out here. Like this has been a brutal year for injuries for the league. Odell Beckham Jr. is out for the season. Andrew Luck, he was placed on IR on Wednesday, I believe it is. And actually, we'll talk a little bit about that too. Yeah, he was placed on IR. And then you got there's been too many top players that have gone down with injuries so far this season that are out for the year. Like Dalvin Cook, he was another rookie that we were all excited. I was really excited about actually because I had him on my fantasy football team. And he was just playing really well. And like the Vikings were just, like you were thinking, you know what, even if they have Sam Bradford and Case Keenum, they have a guy like Dalvin Cook who can help be a playmaker. And then now he went down with an ACL injury. And just imagine if he wouldn't have went down and how good the Vikings would be still right now. I mean, yeah, they're 6-2 still, but they'd be even better with Dalvin Cook out there. But Jerick McKinnon has done a good job. But yeah, let's get back to Deshaun Watson. So him going down is just brutal for the Texans. Basically, I don't want to be too negative about them or anything right now, but honestly, I feel like their season is pretty much done right now. Tom Savage is going to be the quarterback on Sunday, and it seems like he's going to be the quarterback going forward, and I don't think he's a good quarterback. He showed us week 1 how that offense could run when he's out there, and it's just brutal to see. And I'm not trying to bag on Tom Savage too much or anything like that, but I'm just telling it how I feel, you know? But yeah, Deshaun Watson, I think he had like 19 touchdowns so far this season. I think the rookie record for touchdowns in a season by a quarterback was it's either 26 or 27. I can't remember exactly. And I was sure that he was going to break that record easily. I'm sure that he would have ended up with around 30 touchdowns, possibly a little bit more. And his arm strength was just incredible so far this season, throwing on the run. There was a play against Seattle where Will Fuller was running a route to the corner, and it wasn't a touchdown pass that Fuller caught. It was when he caught it right before, like a few yards before the goal line, and Deshaun Watson was on the run. He throws it and just puts it in the perfect place for Will Fuller to catch it and go down near the sideline. And it was just throws like that were just fun to watch with Watson. And like I said, he's a rookie, but he became a leader on that team, and you could see that. He was really mature for, like I said, him being a rookie. And it's brutal to see a guy like that go down, because Richard Sherman, after their game against the Texans, said that, you know what, Deshaun Watson, he's going to be a top 5 quarterback next season. And he's going to be in the same area as guys like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. And then just a week later, Deshaun Watson, in practice of all things, he goes down in practice with an ACL injury. And quarterback is supposed to be the most protected player out there on the field, and it had to be him taking off for a run with the ball, and I'm sure he probably made a bad cut. I haven't seen a video or anything like that about it, and I don't really need to or anything like that because we know what the injury is, but it's probably he made a bad cut, and that's what brought him down. It's just sad to see a guy like that go down. Like I said, he was playing like a top 10 quarterback this season, on pace for probably the best rookie season of all time for a quarterback, and it's just things were looking bright in Houston. The Astros just won the World Series, and then boom, the next day, Watson goes down. But I'm sure he'll come back next year. He'll come back better. He's got a good mentality. He's got a good head on his shoulders. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes back from this. But I think he'll be fine once he comes back. But yeah, as for the Texans going forward, sorry, Houston, but it's not looking too good for you guys. I don't expect them to make the playoffs. Don't expect them to compete for the division at all. I just think it's over for them. But yeah, as for next, let's talk a little about Andrew Luck going on IR. This is a little, what's the word for it? I'm having trouble finding it. It's a little worrying to see. Yeah, it's worrying to see Andrew Luck going back on IR and getting more opinions on his shoulder injury. Because this season he missed a lot of last season with the injury, and this season he was supposed to come back off of the shoulder injury and help the Colts play well. And he comes back, practices a little bit, he starts throwing the ball a little bit more, and then I guess he said that he was feeling more discomfort in his shoulder, so they had it checked out, and I think it was Wednesday. I believe it was Wednesday they put him on IR, and it's kind of worrying to see about a guy like Andrew Luck, because he's a great quarterback. He took them to the AFC Championship against New England a couple of years ago, and he's never really had any real talent around him, so he's a real great quarterback. He's a top 5 quarterback when he's out there. He makes the players around him better. But with him practicing throwing the ball and then his shoulder's hurting still, or it's hurting again actually, it's kind of worrying to see what's going to hold what the future holds for him. As a fan, I want to see him out there, and I'm sure the rest of us do too, unless you're in the AFC South. But even then, Andrew Luck is a fun quarterback to watch, so hopefully he gets his whole shoulder injury worked out and he comes back better next year. But we're going to have to monitor that situation, because it's pretty, like I said, it's just worrying to see with a quarterback like him. Another player coming back, actually, this is actually a good story. I'm happy that Josh Gordon finally got reinstated from the NFL, and he should be joining the Browns around November 20th, I believe. And I'm a big Josh Gordon guy. It seems like you've seen sites like Bleacher Report and ESPN do profiles on him recently, and it seems like he's finally got his head on his shoulders. He's finally thinking straight, and he realized that this is his last chance. And another reason why I'm excited for him to come back is because I really like Deshaun Kaiser for that team. And I know he hasn't looked all too good, and that the Browns are trying to trade for AJ McCarron in order to replace him. But with Josh Gordon coming back, I feel that he's gonna help bring up Kaiser's confidence. Because when Josh Gordon was playing, Brandon Weeden was his quarterback, and we all know Brandon Weeden is not a good quarterback at all. So when you're out there, I think he had over 1,000 yards that season too. I can't remember exactly how many touchdowns, but when you're making Brandon Weeden look like a decent quarterback with your ability, and you really don't see that too much from a wide receiver, but when he's doing that, I mean, you can only think because I still think even with how Deshaun Kaiser is playing, I think he's a better quarterback than Brandon Weeden, or at least I would sure hope so. So yeah, when you got a guy with Kaiser's arm strength, hope a guy like Josh Gordon can go out there and help him out and just bring up his confidence, because I know Hugh Jackson has done a good job of killing that confidence by bringing him in and out and trying to trade for A.J. McCarron. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see Josh Gordon come back. I'm not expecting him to come out and have a 100-yard receiving game his first game with 2 touchdowns or anything like that. But I just want to see if he still has it and if he can help bring up that confidence for Deshaun Kaiser and show him why he's starting for the Browns right now. But we'll see. And as for Ezekiel Elliott, the never-ending situation. Ezekiel Elliott, he's going to be playing Sunday. The courts ruled in favor of his appeal for I can't remember, I don't know all the legal terms, but yeah, he was supposed to be suspended for 6 games. Then he appealed it, he appealed it. So now he gets this week to play, and then next week there's going to be a judge consisting of 3 panels where they're going to rule if he can play the rest of the season or if he's going to start serving that suspension. So I feel like finally we're going to get some closure next week, and who knows, maybe we might not. Maybe they rule that he's going to be suspended, and there's some other court that I don't know about where he can go and appeal it. So we're going to see how that all goes. But this is huge for Dallas because they got Kansas City going up this week, and I figured that if Zeke wasn't going to play, then Kansas City would win this one pretty good. But now that Zeke's out there, I actually like Dallas. And this one, I actually talked in the second segment about it. And we're going to talk more in depth about the game later on in the show. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I like Dallas's chances this week. And it's going to help out Dak Prescott even more. And as for players who I feel are going to have big games this week, I'm in Julio Jones. He's one of the top receivers in the league, but he's been kind of quiet so far. I think that he's going to have a really big game against Carolina. He usually does show up against Carolina. He usually has his best games. I remember he got a cornerback, I believe it's pronounced Ben Rickery, the corner out of San Jose State. He had his worst game ever against Julio Jones, and Julio Jones actually got him cut the day after, I believe it was. So, yeah, I think that Julio Jones is going to have a really big game. I think that this is going to be like as a one unit, but Jacksonville's defense, I feel like they're going to feast against Cincinnati's offense this week. Cincinnati hasn't been playing all too good so far this season. They're not really, Andy Dalton just hasn't been playing up to his ability, and I just think that Jacksonville's defense is just going to go off this week. So yeah, look out for them. Michael Thomas is going to have a really big game, I feel, against Tampa Bay. And I think Jared Goff is going to have, he's not really one who throws for a lot of yards or a lot of touchdowns, but against the Giants defense with Janoris Jenkins out. Oh yeah, that reminds me, Bob McAdoo suspended Janoris Jenkins for Sunday's game. And that's the second suspension that's the second cornerback he's suspended so far this season. But McAdoo says this all has to do with in-house stuff. So, I mean, he needs to get a hold of that locker room and make sure that everyone is on the same page. So we'll see. But yeah, I feel like Jared Goff could go for around 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. As for another player that I think is going to do pretty well this week is Russell Wilson. He's going to have, I believe, Dwayne Brown's going to play this Sunday. And that Seattle offensive line has just been brutal over the last few years. We've all been wondering why they don't fix it up, but they did at the trade deadline by getting Dwayne Brown, and he was Houston's best offensive lineman, I believe. So, yeah, I feel like Russell Wilson, he's going to have a big game this week. And as for, I think Devontae Parker against Oakland, he's gonna have a solid game too. With Oakland gonna be missing 3 of their corners, I believe it was that I saw this morning, which is Friday. Yeah, Friday morning I saw that Oakland's gonna be missing 3 corners. So I don't think Devontae Parker's gonna have a lot of catches, but Jay Cutler just loves to throw that ball up to him and hope he catches it. And more often than not, Devontae Parker's gonna come out with it. So yeah, those are players I think that are gonna have big games. As for players I think that aren't gonna have really too good of games this Sunday. Dez Bryant is one. I really don't like him going up against any great cornerback in the league. He's going to be going up against Marcus Peters, so I don't think Dez is going to have a good game. I don't think Adrian Peterson will have a good game. I don't think he'll have a good rest of the season. He had that one game in London, I believe it was, where I can't remember exactly, but he ran for over 134 yards. It was his first game with Arizona. And San Francisco, I feel, is just going to stack the box against him and force Drew Stanton to throw, and just Adrian Peterson is just not going to have a good game at all, I don't believe. I think Jameis Winston, he's going to struggle a little bit. Marcus Lattimore, he's been a top 5 corner even as a rookie so far this season for New Orleans, and I know New Orleans defense hasn't been all too good the last couple of years, but it looks like they finally started putting it together. So yeah, I think Jameis Winston, he's going to have another rough game. And the Texans offense, that's another unit where I think they're going to have a not too good of a game either. I know Indianapolis' defense isn't that good or anything like that, but with Tom Savage out there, you're just going to see a completely different defense, or different offense, excuse me. And I just feel like with Deshaun Watson going out this week, that team is just going to be deflated this coming Sunday. So yeah, that's how I feel about everything, the storylines, And that's who I feel is going to have a good game, who's going to have bad games. And we're going to see how it all plays out this Sunday. It's going to be a very exciting weekend of games, I feel. So, yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Next segment, we're going to talk about I'm going to talk about the Dallas and Kansas City game. Give analysis on Oakland versus Miami Sunday night, and then give an analysis on Green Bay and Detroit for Monday night. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alright, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. The last segment, if you missed it, we talked about the storylines going on in the NFL this week and gave my thoughts about that. And after that, I talked a little bit about which players I think are going to have good games this week and which players I think aren't going to play that good. And yeah, so let's get started with this segment. For this segment, we're going to preview the Kansas City versus Dallas game, and then the Sunday night and Monday night games. And for our podcasts that are on Fridays from now on, I'm always probably going to preview at least the game of the week, I think, from the morning and afternoon games. Pick one game from there that I think is going to be really good, and then I'll always preview the Sunday night and Monday night games going forward. So yeah, look forward to that. But let's get started with these games. So I want to start off with the Kansas City at Dallas game. And beforehand, well, when Ezekiel Elliott was going to be suspended, I was thinking, you know what, Kansas City is just going to blow out Dallas in this game because Dez Bryant doesn't do well against top cornerbacks in the league, and I just felt like Marcus Peters was going to shut him down. But now that Ezekiel Elliott's back, I've changed my mind, and I think that Dallas is going to win this one, actually. It's going to be a really fun game. It's probably going to be, I think it'll be the best game of the week, even with the Monday night and Sunday night and Monday night games. I think this will be the game of the week, and I think that Kareem Hunt, he's going to have a big game. I'm not too high, or actually, DeMarcus Lawrence has been really good for that Dallas defensive line, but I still feel that a guy like Kareem Hunt, he's gonna need to bounce back after his poor game against Denver last week. I believe last week he only had around 45 yards rushing, I believe. Yeah, so I think he's going to have a bounce back game this week. He's going to do well. I think he'll go for around maybe 90 yards or 100 and possibly have a touchdown. Tyreek Hill is also someone I'm really excited to see this Sunday. I think he's going to have another really big game also. He's not going to have too many yards. He's going to have probably around 60, 70 yards and not too many catches, I don't think. But Tyreek Hill is that type of player that once he gets the ball, he can do whatever he wants with it. So, yeah, I think he's going to make a couple of big plays. I don't think he's going to have a lot of catches or anything like that. But, yeah, I think he's due for a few big plays on Sunday. Travis Kelce is another player that I feel like he's going to have a good game. This game's going to be a really offensive game, too. I'm going to just go out and say that right now. I feel like this game's going to be really offensive. It's going to be a shootout, I think, now that Ezekiel Elliott's going to be out there. So, yeah, but now I think Travis Kelce's going to have a solid game. He's been on fire so far this season. Him and Zach Ertz have been competing for that number one tight end spot in the league so far this season. Ertz has been having a really good year. Carson Wentz pretty much just throws it to him once they're out near the goal line. And Zach Ertz is that really reliable guy. But as for Kelce, he's always been that blanket for Alex Smith. And I say blanket because when Alex Smith is feeling danger or he's kind of scared, and this is actually a term I learned from Omar Kelly. He actually tweets it out a little bit. He used to tweet it with Ryan Tannehill when he'd throw the ball to Jarvis Landry. So, yeah, I feel like Travis Kelce is Alex Smith's blanket because when Alex Smith is under pressure or no one's open, boom, look for Kelce, and he's going to be able to he's going to be able to get the ball, and he's going to make something or do something with it. So, yeah, I feel like Travis Kelce's going to have another big game. I'm not too high on Kansas City's defense this week. Like I said earlier, I do think that they're going to shut down Dez Bryant, but I don't think that they're going to be able to hold Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's going to have a really big game. And he started off the season kind of slow. I mean, he wasn't playing poorly or anything like that, but he wasn't just playing up to the standard that we all hold him to, and I'm sure that he holds himself to that high standard, but as of the last few games, and more than the last few games actually, he's been playing really well. I think last week he had around 134 yards and 2 touchdowns against Washington, and that actually hurt me because the guy I was playing in fantasy football had him, but it's always nice to see Ezekiel Elliott running the ball well, so I think he's going to have another big game. Excuse me, but yeah, he's gonna have another big game, and I think Dak Prescott's gonna have a good game too. Even with Dak, me not feeling that Dez Bryant's gonna have all that good of a game, he's gonna find a guy like Cole Beasley or even Terrence Williams, and he's gonna do well. Jason Witten's been playing well so far this season. He's not playing like he's an old guy in the league or anything like that. He's getting open, getting the ball, making plays, scoring touchdowns. So, yeah, I feel like Dak Prescott's gonna have a really big game this week. And I just feel like it's going to come down to Kansas City's offense not being able to keep up with Dallas's offense. And I know that might sound odd to a few because I'm sure there's people out there who feel that Kansas City has a better offense than Dallas. But I really like Ezekiel Elliott as a running back, and I'm really high on Dak Prescott as a quarterback. I know the guy gets compared to Carson Wentz a lot, and I'm sure that people try to take stuff away from Dak Prescott because Carson Wentz is a really great quarterback. But either way, Dak Prescott is still a great quarterback also. He's just not as good as Carson Wentz, but he can still make throws, and he doesn't have the best deep ball, but he's accurate. So, yeah, I feel like Dallas is just gonna score throughout the rest of the game, and that Kansas City won't be able to keep up. So we'll see about that. I could be wrong. I could be right, but we'll see on Sunday. As for the Oakland and Miami game, Oakland's going to be heading to Miami for Sunday night. It's going to be a fun one. Actually, beginning of the season, I'm sure we all thought, you know what, Oakland versus Miami. Miami made the playoffs last year. That looked really good. Ryan Tannehill this season, he's going to have a big year, and Oakland's going to be an AFC title or AFC championship contender and possibly even Super Bowl contender. And both of these teams have disappointed so far this season. People can look at Miami's record and think they're 4-3, but they just haven't played like a 4-3 team so far this season. The defense has done their job, but Jay Cutler and the offense they're the worst offense in the league so far this season. There's really no argument for that. It's true. Miami has the worst offense in the league, but Oakland has one of the worst defenses in the league. So I guess it's pretty funny. We're going to see which one could just play a little bit better than how they have been. Oakland's going to be missing 3 corners on Sunday night, and I think that's going to help Devontae Parker. He's going to be coming off an injury. I think he is going to play Sunday, and he's going to be a big help to that Miami offense. So I feel that Devontae Parker is going to catch a few deep balls because Jay Cutler, we all know that he just likes to close his eyes sometimes and throw the ball up. Hopefully the receiver's going to come down with it, but you never know. And I feel like Devontae Parker is going to have a few catches like that. I think Jarvis Landry is going to have a big game. He was pretty fired up after the Baltimore game where they got blown out 40-0. I think he got in a bit of an argument with a reporter after the game. And as for Oakland, I'm not saying that Miami's going to blow them out or anything. I think that Derek Carr, he's going to have a good game too. He needs to force feed the ball to Michael Crabtree, and I'm kind of wondering how Marshawn Lynch is going to do Sunday. So far this season, he hasn't done all too well. I feel like that has to do with Oakland not giving him the ball enough, but they do run an offense a certain way to where it's fast-paced, and it's not more of a hard-nosed, hit you in the mouth type of offense like Marshawn ran with Seattle when he would get the ball constantly. So I feel like it's just Marshawn's struggles so far this season have been because he's just not a good scheme fit for the offense. But we never know. I mean, Miami's rush defense has been off and on so far this season. I know that William Hayes and Andre Branch, the DNs for Miami, they're questionable for the game Sunday. So if they're out, I'm sure you're going to see Charles Harris, the rookie, come out and start. And if he does start, I'm sure you'll see Jack Del Rio calling a lot of plays going that way. So it's going to be a fun game, I think, still, even though that these teams have been pretty disappointing so far this season. Excuse me. But yeah, I feel like it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be an offensive game. If Oakland's going to come out of this game and win this one, they're just going to have to put up around, I think, probably around 25 points. I don't think even with their defense missing 3 corners, I still don't think that Miami's offense is going to be able to take too much advantage of that, just based off of how simple the offense has been run this season. Oh yeah, and that reminds me too, since they traded Jay Ajayi, the 2 running backs going forward are going to be Damian Williams and Kenyon Drake. And I think that Damian Williams, his role is not going to be, he's going to see more touches and stuff like that, but it's more going to be receiving the ball and on third downs, I feel. I think Kenyon Drake, he's going to be the starter for Sunday night, and he hasn't gotten too many opportunities this season to show what he can do. But last season, when he got the ball, he was an explosive back. He's really entertaining to watch. He's not a big guy or anything like that, but he's just like I like his vision. You can close up a hole in the middle, and he'll bounce out to the outside, and that speed that he has makes that possible for him to do that. Because I know a lot of running backs try that, but they just simply don't have the speed to get around that corner. And Drake is a running back who can do that. So I feel like with Oakland's defense not playing too well at all this season, I think that Kenyon Drake, he's going to have a pretty good game. He could probably go for around I think he's going to have at least 15 carries and maybe around 80 yards and possibly a touchdown. I think Damian Williams is also a guy who could go for a touchdown. He's going to be featured a lot more in the offense. And I just hope that for this week, adding Adam Gase, just for the sake of the fans and just the team, he opens up the offense and see how it goes. But like I said, don't sleep on the Raiders this week. The only reason I'm kind of down on them is just because they're going to be missing 3 corners, and that secondary just hasn't been good as it is. So we're going to see how that all plays out. But yeah, I like Miami in this one, but it's going to be a fun game to watch. It's not going to be as entertaining, or it's not going to be as intriguing as we thought it would be in the beginning of the season, but I still think it'll be a pretty good game. And as for Detroit and Green Bay, this one might be the most boring game out of the last 2 that I've covered in this one. Mainly because Brett Hundley, it's not going to be because of Detroit's going to be. I'm not high on Brett Hundley at all. Like I said or mentioned earlier in the podcast, he completed 1 pass in his first start in the first quarter. And I mean, he obviously completed more passes after that, but when you're out there completing only 1 pass in a quarter, I mean, that's not too, not too encouraging for an offense. And I'm sure Green Bay fans are pretty worried about how their season is going to end up now that Rodgers has gone down. Yeah, and that's just another guy that went down with a season-ending injury is Aaron Rodgers. Injuries have just been brutal to the NFL so far this season. J.J. Watt went out. Aaron Rodgers went out for the season. I mentioned earlier how Odell Beckham Jr. is out for the year. Deshaun Watson, Dalvin Cook. It's just been all these great players. And I know Dalvin Cook's a rookie, so probably need to pump the brakes on a great player, but he was explosive when he was out there. But yeah, as far as the game goes, I don't think Brett Hundley's going to have all too good of a game. And going forward, like I've mentioned earlier, I don't think that he's pretty much going to have to be a quarterback that's going to have to prove it to me for me to think that Green Bay can do well. Like I've got Devontae Adams on my fantasy team also, and that guy is not coming off the bench. I'm not going to cut him or anything like that because you never know. He is a great receiver, so he could make plays on his own as far as like getting short passes and just yards after the catch with that. But yeah, it's just I'm not high on Green Bay at all. It's just Jordy Nelson. His production went down. You saw that the last game. They got Aaron Jones, he's been a pretty good, solid running back for them. And Green Bay's secondary, actually. Their defense, just like New Orleans, their defense has been a problem for them the last few years, but this year they've really stepped up, and who knows, maybe Brett Hundley could have a decent game. I don't think he's going to do too much or anything like that, but maybe he could have a decent game to where they put some points on the board and the defense is able to hold Matt Stafford, but we'll see about that. I think Detroit's defense, if Brett Hundley doesn't really show us that he can produce somewhat, then I think they're going to have a really big game. They probably get to the quarterback a lot more than usual. Darius Slay's a really good cornerback out there, so he's probably going to shut down Jordy Nelson or Devontae Adams, whichever one he's covering. And as far as Detroit's offense goes, I really love watching that offense because they're a pass-happy offense. Amir Abdullah and Theo Riddick, they don't really run the ball all too much. They'll probably get the ball maybe running it around 10 times each a game. Abdullah more so than Riddick, because Riddick's more of a receiving back out of the backfield. But yeah, I really just love how they run that offense. It's exciting to watch. I think Golden Tate's going to have a big game, and I think that Marvin Jones is going to have that Marvin Jones game where, he usually he stays quiet for most of the season, but there's always those few games during the season where Marvin Jones breaks out for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns with like 10 catches or something like that. And I feel like this is going to be the game where Marvin Jones has his Marvin Jones game. I know it's funny to say for me, kind of, actually, but yeah, I think Marvin Jones can go for around 10 catches, probably around 125 yards, 130, around there, and I think he's going to come out with 2 touchdowns in the game. So yeah, I'm really predicting a really big game for Marvin Jones. As far as Golden Tate goes, he'll probably have a game where he has a lot of catches, probably around 8 catches for like 60 yards, possibly a touchdown. Golden Tate isn't really all that much of a deep threat, and he showed us that too when he was in Seattle, and then as far as his time in Detroit, he's been a really good receiver for them. I'm sure most of us thought, or some of us thought, that once he left Seattle, you're thinking, oh yeah, there's no way he's going to be able to have the same type of production that he had with Russell Wilson, but that's simply not been true. And there was a stat, I believe, in the Sunday night game against Pittsburgh where in his time with Detroit, I can't remember exactly how many screens they've thrown to him exactly. It was a really big number, and I'm not going to try and guess it or anything like that because I don't want to be too wrong about it. But I know for a fact that he's only one of those screens has been incomplete, and those are really where he gets his chunk yards right there, and he's able to score touchdowns. So I expect him to get a heavy dosage in screens, and he's going to get he's going to run a lot of underneath routes, and I feel like Matt Stafford's going to find him. So yeah, that's why I think he's going to have a lot of catches, but not too many yards. But like I said, I like Detroit in this one. It's probably not going to be the most fun game to watch, but I think it'll be a good game still. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Matt Stafford last Sunday against Pittsburgh, he threw for around over 300 yards, but just simply couldn't get into that end zone. I think that's going to be some added motivation for this week because he knows obviously if they're going to win the game and try and get back into this playoff race, because I believe they're 3-4 right now. So yeah, if they need to win this game in order to get back into it, and I think they will. So I'm expecting Stafford to go for around maybe 320 yards. I'll say 3 touchdowns, 3 to 4 touchdowns. Yeah, I think he's going to have a big game. So it's going to be an interesting game to see. As far as ranking them for which ones I think are going to be the best, it's pretty much in how I've covered them. I think Kansas City and Dallas is going to be the game of the week, and then Oakland, Miami will be a good one, and then Detroit and Green Bay is not going to be the most entertaining, but it'll still be a good game to watch. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Again, those are how I feel about these games, and as for the next segment, I'm going to give a little power rankings for each team and just pretty much give an analysis for how I think each team has done so far and what they need to do and if they're in danger of going down or if they're on the up and up. So yeah, we'll talk about that when we get back. So thanks for listening and stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and welcome back to the final segment of the GSMC Football Podcast. In the last segment, I gave a little bit of analysis about the Kansas City and Dallas game, the Oakland and Miami game, and Detroit and Green Bay. Pretty much just gave my thoughts on like matchups and who I think is going to play well, who's not going to play well, and pretty much just gave a little bit more in depth than I did about the games where I was giving my predictions in. So yeah, if you missed that, go ahead and check that out. But as for this last segment, originally I had said that I was going to do a power rankings type of thing, but instead I changed my mind and actually grouped a bunch of teams into 5 different tiers. First tier being the best, second tier obviously being the second best, third, and so on. So it's pretty much 1 is the best, 5th is the worst. Okay, so in the first tier, this is pretty much who I think is pretty much the best teams in the league right now. And I'll read off each team and I'll give a little bit of something of what I think of each team and what I think what works well for them, what doesn't. So yeah, let's get into it. In the first tier, I have Pittsburgh, and I put them in there right now because they're 6-2, playing like a really great team. Mike Tomlin always has his team ready to go. The secondary, which has been a problem for them the last few years, is finally starting to play well. So they've finally been able to get like this Pittsburgh defense that we've been missing for quite a while, for like a few years. Like it's finally all complete, and like we're all like teams are finally starting to get scared of Pittsburgh's defense coming in. Like last week against Detroit. Detroit, they got Matt Stafford threw for like over 300 yards, I believe, but he simply just couldn't get into the end zone. And Pittsburgh's defense was playing really well in that game too, so they have that going for them. Then you always have to worry about Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, and Ben Roethlisberger's going to do his thing. And they got Juju Smith-Schuster, who's been playing really well so far, making the most of his opportunity. And if Martavis Bryant can finally get his head on straight, then boom, that's just it's a Super Bowl contender right there if they're able to put it all together. Next up, Kansas City. They're a really great team right now, one of the best two, I think. I think in the AFC, it's going to come down to Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and New England. 2 out of those 3 teams will be in the AFC Championship, I think. But let's get into Kansas City for a little bit. That offense, it's looking better than it has before. The last few years, Alex Smith has always been considered a game manager quarterback. And so far this season, he's turned this offense, with the help of Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt, but he's turned this offense into a high-powered, quick offense that's really fun to watch. Tyreek Hill is always going to make big plays for you. Kareem Hunt's he's probably going to be offensive rookie of the year now that Watson went out. And Travis Kelce, like I said, he's one of the best tight ends year in, year out. And Marcus Peters is a really solid guy on the defense. So yeah, I have them in that first tier with Pittsburgh. Then New England, they're always going to be up there with Tom Brady no matter what. You could throw me out there at wide receiver and somehow he'll make me look decent. Probably not, but I'm just trying to emphasize how good Tom Brady is. But yeah, so they're out there in that first tier with Pittsburgh and KC. Then Philadelphia, they're 7-1 right now. Probably going to be 8-1 after Sunday when they play Dallas. They just got Jay Ajayi, which makes them even better, and they're a Super Bowl contender right now. Carson Wentz is early front runner for MVP, at least that's my opinion, and the defense has been playing well too. So yeah, they're up there with them. New Orleans is also in there. That defense is finally starting to play well. Marshawn Lattimore is playing like a top 5 cornerback even as a rookie, and Drew Brees is having one of his better seasons. And Michael Thomas and Ted Ginn have also been a big help on the receiving corps. And as far as the running backs go, like I've stated multiple times earlier, Mark Ingram is a really good running back when you need him to get those yards and get first downs and all that. And then Alvin Kamara is a really exciting back to watch come out of the backfield because he's a playmaker. And for the last team that I have in Tier 1 is the Seattle Seahawks. Right now, it looks like they're finally starting to hit their stride, and I think that they're going to end up in the NFC Championship game once that time comes. Russell Wilson's finally playing like how he should be. They just got Dwayne Brown. That secondary is always something to watch for. And Doug Baldwin's always capable of making plays, so I really like Seattle too. So yeah, that's going to round out Tier 1. As for Tier 2, I'm going to start off with Buffalo. They lost Thursday night to the Jets, 34-21. So they could fall out if they do end up playing pretty poorly against New Orleans next week. But I'm not ready to kill Buffalo yet. I think that I'm going to still give them a chance and see what they can do next week. Okay, I'm still like the defense. LaShawn McCoy is not going to have a bad game as often or like he did going forward, or at least it's not going to be that bad anymore. And Tyrod Taylor is still a capable quarterback, and they didn't have now they're getting Kelvin Benjamin added to their offense, so we'll see how they do. Minnesota, that's a team where I was kind of iffy. Do I put them in Tier 1 or do I put them in Tier 2? And I was thinking, looking at the teams that I have in Tier 1, I'm like, can Minnesota compete with these teams in the playoffs? And yeah, but I don't really like their chances against any of them, even though they've been a good team. And it looks like Teddy Bridgewater is close to coming back, and when they get him back, hopefully he plays back to how he had before. I think he's going to be a big boost for that team. Jerick McKinnon's been really good so far, and that defense is always going to have you on your toes as an offense. So yeah, I got Minnesota in there. And then the LA Rams, that's one of the funner teams to watch. I like watching them a lot. Jared Goff is playing how we all expected him to last season, now that McVay's out there and Fisher isn't. Todd Gurley's having a good year after really bad last season. And then the defense, just like this is a team like Minnesota. They don't have a top, I don't think Jared Goff is a quarterback who's going to throw for over 400 yards or anything like that. But he's going to get the job done. He's not going to turn the ball over. Their running backs play really well on offense. And then the defense is what brings it all in for them and keeps them in the game and gives them those opportunities to win. So yeah, I like the Rams in Tier 2 also. And then Atlanta and Dallas, I have both of them in Tier 2. And I'm sure people might disagree saying that they're not really on the Rams or Vikings or Buffalo's level right now. But come towards the end of the season, I'm sure you're going to see Atlanta right there near the top in the division and probably fighting for the wild card still. And or actually, I think they're going to pull out a wild card. And you can't really, I know they haven't been playing like it, but the offense is still high-powered, I feel, and Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, and Devontae Freeman, they're due for a really big game, and I think that soon they're going to put it all together. And as for Dallas, even because I'm sure that after this Sunday, Ezekiel Elliott is going to have to serve his suspension unless the judges rule in favor of him. But even with him gone, I still think Dak Prescott is that good to keep him in it. And Alfred Morris and Rod Smith, I'm naming those two, not McFadden, because Dallas released the depth chart. That's a funny one to pronounce. Yeah, depth chart. Earlier this week when it was thought that Ezekiel Elliott wouldn't play, and they had Morris as number 1 and Rod Smith as number 2. So yeah, I still think Dak Prescott is going to keep him in it, and that defense is pretty quick too. So defense is always going to keep him in games also. So that's going to round out Tier 2. As for Tier 3, I put Tennessee there. They could be a team that could end up in Tier 2, but Marcus Mariota has been hampered by that hamstring injury, and Mike Mularkey came out and said after the bye week that it's 100%, so we're going to see how he does against Baltimore this week. It's going to be a tough game for him, I think. As for the next team, I have Miami in there, and I'm sure a lot of people disagree with that, mainly because their offense has been so bad, but they're still 4-3. Still fighting for a playoff spot, and that defense plays pretty well. It's always going to give them a chance to win a game. So, yeah, I got Miami in there. Jacksonville is another fun team to watch. Their defense is the best in the league by far. And Leonard Fournette has just been running all over the place. And he missed the last game with an ankle injury against Indianapolis, but Chris Ivory has done well for when Leonard Fournette comes out, or if he doesn't play, Chris Ivory has done well to fill him, pick up the slack for him. So, yeah, I got Jacksonville in there. And then Baltimore. Again, their team like Miami, probably a little bit better, but their offense hasn't been playing too good so far this season, but their defense has been lights out. CJ Mosley is one of the better middle linebackers in the league. And I'm always gonna be high on Baltimore just because of how well their defense plays, and John Harbaugh's a really good coach. Then a team that might surprise someone, I have Oakland in Tier 3 along with those 4 teams right there. I know Oakland's 3-5, but they still got the ability to come back and finish off the season strong. And they always have a chance with that offense out there. Derek Carr's been playing okay. I think he's going to start picking it up. Amari Cooper's been off and on. And Michael Crabtree's been really consistent for that offense. So if they can somehow figure out a way to get Marshawn more productive, then I like that team. But I don't expect their defense to really get better as the season goes on. Detroit's another team I have in there. Matt Stafford's always going to keep them in games. And I really like that offense and how fast and how they pass all the time. It's just really fun to watch. So, yeah, I like Detroit. The defense has been playing well so far this season also, and I think they're going to be fighting for a wild card towards the end of the season. I put Washington in there also. I know Washington is a iffy team. They were a team where I wasn't sure if I wanted to put them in the 4th tier or the 3rd tier. I ended up just putting them in the 3rd just because of I really like Kirk Cousins, and Chris Thompson's been a explosive playmaker out of the backfield. I really wasn't expecting this out of him. I know he showed flashes last year, but he's just pretty much took it and ran with it so far this season. And when you got guys like Josh Norman in the secondary, you're always going to have a chance to win. So it's just a matter of Washington being able to finish games. And then to round out Tier 3, I have Carolina. I haven't been really too high on them so far this season, but you know what? They're 5-3 and they're winning games. Cam Newton hasn't played all that well. Christian McCaffrey, he leads the team in receptions right now, and they just traded away Kelvin Benjamin, so we're going to see how they deal with that. The defense has been pretty good so far this season, not as good as the last few seasons, but it's still something that you can be happy about. So yeah, that's going to round out Tier 3. And as for Tier 4, I put Houston in there, and they're only in there because Deshaun Watson's out for the season now. Don't like them with Tom Savage at all, and I just feel like that team's just going to start going down. I know I've been really negative about them so far, and I know I'm sure most or all Houston Texans fans don't really want to hear it, but it's just how I feel about it. Then Cincinnati, that's a team that's been trending down, and I'm not really sure how safe Marvin Lewis's job is after this season. This is a team that should be competing for the playoffs, and they're simply not playing up to their standard. The Jets are a team that's really surprised me. I'm not ready to put them in Tier 3 or anything like that, mainly because I don't think that come towards the end of the season, I don't think that they'll be fighting for a wild card team. They'll be in the mix, but they're a team that I think we can all say that they're not going to make the playoffs. I think they'll end up finishing the season 7-9, but it's not good for a rebuilding team, but for how the players have played so far this season, it's really good. And as for Denver's another team I have in Tier 4. You got Brock Osweiler out there starting, and the offense has basically just been boring and just dead throughout the season, and it's really hurt the defense because the defense has to play a lot more out there. So yeah, I got them in Tier 4. Then I got Green Bay. That's another thing. The quarterback is really going to be holding him back, I feel, unless somehow he proves me wrong. And there's always that possibility that he might. But yeah, Brett Hundley just isn't Aaron Rodgers, of course, and he isn't really half of what Aaron Rodgers is. So that offense just hasn't been playing good since he's been out there. And then I got Chicago. That's a team that's probably going to stick in Tier 4 for the rest of the season. But Mitch Trubisky is a quarterback I'm really excited about. He makes a lot of good throws, doesn't throw for a lot of yards, and doesn't throw for many touchdowns, but that's just because I feel like the offense is more catered to Jordan Howard, and I feel like they're trying to ease Mitch Trubisky into it. So next year they could be a team that can move up into that third tier and compete for a playoff spot if they pick up some good receivers, and that defense is really exciting to watch too. They force a lot of turnovers and score some touchdowns. So yeah, got Chicago in there. And then I got the Chargers in Tier 4 also. They're sort of trending, they're kind of like in the middle type of team right now. Phillip Rivers has been playing well, and Melvin Gordon's been looking like a top running back again. I know after that rookie season, we were all pretty low on him, but these last 2 years, he's proved to us that, I belong here, and he does. He's a top 5 running back in the league, I feel. So yeah, I got the Chargers in Tier 4. And then Tampa Bay, they're 2-5, I believe, right now. And I'm sure people believe they might be or think that they belong in Tier 5 with the bottom rest of the teams, but I still feel like Jameis Winston, he's a good quarterback. He just needs to fix the turnover problem. Doug Martin's been playing really well for them so far. Mike Evans has been having a good year, and Deshaun Jackson's always capable of having a good game. And the only thing that's really been holding him back is the defense, I feel. I mean, obviously Jameis Winston with the turnovers, but the secondary has just been brutal so far this season. They really can't cover anyone. So yeah, I got them to round out Tier 4. And as for Tier 5, these are for the consist of the worst teams in the league, at least that I think they are. Indianapolis is in there. They're not going to have Andrew Luck for the season. He's back on IR, so hopefully he gets his shoulder figured out, and hopefully he comes back next year and is able to play. Jacoby Brissett's been probably their best player on both sides of the ball. T.Y. Hilton, he's got the most talent on that team, but I just feel like Jacoby Brissett has just done his job better than T.Y. Hilton has done his. I got Cleveland in there, and Cleveland just hurts my head sometimes because I really thought DeShone Kizer was going to be a good quarterback for them, but they haven't really given him a chance to develop. You can't take a guy in and out, and then you can't trade for a guy try and trade for A.J. McCarron at the trade deadline unless you think that DeShone Kizer isn't the guy. They're going to be getting Josh Gordon back, so maybe he can help them pull out a win for the season, but yeah, I got them right there in Tier 5. San Francisco is another team in that tier. I think that they're going to pull out a win against Arizona this week. I think that they're going to be able to shut down Arizona's offense completely. So I think all they need is maybe around 13, 14 points, and they'll be able to pull out the win. It's going to be interesting to see when Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, how he's going to play. I know Pierre Garçon is out for the year, so you can't really expect too much out of Jimmy G. He doesn't have a lot of weapons around him. Arizona, I got them in Tier 5 also with Drew Stanton playing quarterback. They have no chance of really winning many games. I know Adrian Peterson was supposed to, him and Carson Palmer and Larry Fitzgerald were supposed to be the 3 old guys that were going to help bring them back, but now that Carson Palmer's out, that plan really doesn't work. And then to round out Tier 5, I got the New York Giants. And they're a team that was just decimated by injuries. They're like Brandon Marshall's out for the year, Odell Beckham Jr. is out for the year, I believe Dwayne Harris is out for the year. And I know Dwayne Harris isn't really on their level, but that's 3 receivers right there that you don't have. So they just have Sterling Shepard right now and a bunch of practice squad guys out there. So yeah, I just got them. I got them to round out Tier 5, and I think they have some problems in the locker room because this is the Janoris Jenkins is suspended for Sunday's game, and this is the second time a cornerback has been suspended by Bob McAdoo, so there's got to be something going on in there. But yeah, those are the 5 tiers, and like I said, I explained why each team belongs in each one, and if you agree, then you agree, and if you don't, let me know. But yeah, other than that, that's going to be it for today's show. It's been a pretty fun show throughout, I feel. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for listening. Once again, this is the GSMC Football Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.